Okay, this is the Arborist call for the 11th of July. This is going to be a quick one, I think, because a bunch of people are in San Diego at ECC's event. We'll start off with core team updates, and then we'll have, I think it'll just be a Frost update today. And just a reminder of, you guys should join together. Um, just a reminder that this is an Arborist call. It's a call that happens every 2 weeks, and it's where Zcash core developers and protocol contributors come together to discuss what we're doing, to discuss upgrade timelines, the various research and development efforts that we're doing, and to identify any blockers to making progress. The purpose of these calls is to make core Zcash protocol development more transparent for the Zcash community and to provide a place for anybody who's interested in protocol development or learning more about the process to come and listen and ultimately take part. If you want to join these calls regularly, just point your browser at zcasharborist.org and register there. And if you want to present something for discussion, just drop us an email to arboristcall@zfnd.org and we can get you scheduled in. Other ways to get involved, you can request a grant from Zcash Community Grants. You can join in the discussion on the Zcash R&D Discord, which is where a lot of the Zcash core developers congregate and chat about the work that they're doing. And then for probably the less technical end of discussions, there's the Zcash Community Forum, which is always spicy and exciting. And you can find these links by pointing your browser at zcasharborist.org. We'll start off with ECC this week, and I'm imagining that it's Chris today.
Yep.
Your sound isn't great, Chris. Don't know if you can bring the microphone closer.
How about you?
This works. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me better like this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I will just use the laptop mic then. So as you can imagine, there's been a bunch of fascinating discussion this week at the ZECC Summit with respect to what's coming next. There'll be roadmap information about that coming out from ECC next week. But in terms of near-term and development stuff, we are still working on the completion of ZIP 320 support. That's all implemented just now in the final review process. And I have finally gotten some good progress on the refactoring of test infrastructure out from Zcash Client SQLite into Zcash Client backend, so that we can start making testing with fake chains more readily available, so we can start having that ready for integration into the future Zcash D replacement wallet. So those are the main things. Most of last week, while we were still all working, was related to ZIP 320 support and Dara MSPR. So that's about it for us.
Okay. Any questions for Chris? Okay, we'll move on to Zebra, and I think it's Aria today.
Yep, thank you, Dodger. So in Zebra, since the last Arborist call, version 1.8.0 was released. It includes an update to the default unpaid action limit for ZIP 317 from 50 to 0, and a lowered mandatory checkpoint height from the block height just after ZIP 212 grace period to just before the canopy activation height. So Zebra will now semantically verify an extra 30,000 or so blocks when checkpoint sync is disabled, thanks to some changes in the Zcash primitives version 0.14.0 release, which made it really easy to handle the ZIP 212 grace period more easily during semantic validation. Also, a new alpha version of the Zebra launcher was tagged with the latest Zebra release. Installers for Debian and Windows are available on the Zebra Launcher GitHub repository. Past binaries inexplicably stopped working on macOS. It may still be the issue with code signing that was causing macOS to quarantine the app before, but hopefully that'll be fixed in the next version of the Zebra Launcher. We merged some more changes into the main branch after the release. It's now easier to initialize a read-only ZebraDP finalize state and restate service from a separate process. And now read-only instances of ZebraDB use a secondary RuxDB instance, so it can catch up to the latest finalized state based on the write-ahead log before updates in the mem table are flushed to disk. A trusted chain sync module was added to Zebra RPC, which maintains an up-to-date copy of Zebra's non-finalized state in a separate process and tracks chain tip changes in a Zebra node via RPC methods. And a standalone Zebra scanner binary was added to the Zebra scan crate using the secondary RoxDB instance and using the trusted chain sync module to keep a copy of the non-finalized state and track chain tip changes. This approach requires Zebra's cache directory to be available to the Zebra scanner process and requires extra memory to keep the copy of the non-finalized state compared to accessing data from Zebra state via RPC calls to the prospective indexer service. But it helped to avoid changes to how the shielded scanner gets data from Zebra state. And it'll be needed by the indexer service later anyways, and it allows for testing the trusted chain sync module through Zebra scan. So there's no extra work involved in changing it so it uses RPC calls later. And then there's also a new page in the Zebra book describing how to use custom testnets in Zebra, caveats, constraints, and a comparison between custom testnets, the default testnet, and regtest. And we merged our first dependency update that was reviewed with Cargo Vet, which had been added just before the last Arborist call. There's also a PR open for moving tests for the shielded scanner and the scanning results reader binary, the utility binary, from ZebraD and Zebra Utils to Zebra Scan. And next, we're going to be working on moving one last test over for the shielded scanner to finish up that PR, some documentation updates for the scanner, investigating block explorer support, and adding the indexer RPC interface, which is hopefully going to be used by the Zcash replacement wallet. And I think that's all for Zebra.
I'm given a bunch of the conversations that we've had here at the Zec Summit, I am super excited now about some possibilities that are of different kinds of applications that can make use of the Zebra scanner library. And one question I have is, has there been defined yet a protocol or a format for returning scan data to clients of the scanner? How is that? Do we have a format for that yet?
Not currently. So there are a couple different ways to get data from the scanner because it caches the data. So you can either just get the results with a synchronous method, or you could get them as a stream. And in both cases, it just returns the transaction IDs. So the client of ZebraScan will have to rescan those transactions, but at least it doesn't have to go find a needle in a haystack and search all of the transactions. I'm really excited about this as well. I think it solves a lot of scalability problems.
And just to give some insight into that, the rationale for just returning the transaction IDs was A, simplicity, and B, also the potential that the sort of future forward-looking compatibility with a situation where we have detection keys.
Yeah. So for a wallet making use, or an application, let's not call it a wallet necessarily, making use of the Zebra scanner, you can use just the transaction ID to pull down the transaction data, and that gets you the memos and whatnot, which is all that some applications need. And then for a wallet, you would need to download both transaction data and some surrounding block data, and potentially some adjacent note commitment tree data in order to make the notes discovered spendable. Because you would at least need the prior note commitment tree frontier, and then the following note commitment tree data as of the end of that block, or as of the remainder of the to the 16th subtree up to the subtree root, to actually make that note spendable. So anyway, interesting stuff. Definitely looking forward to it. There may be some additional operations that we want to add to the Light Wallet server to support that kind of not having to scan everything once you've discovered your notes.
All right.
Another consideration for just storing the transaction IDs was we intended this to be used with minimal storage requirements. So we just didn't want to store all of the scanned data.
Cool. Any other questions relating to Zebra? We've kind of blurred over a little bit into the Zcash deprecation topic there with for context, the Zebra scan work is basically related to Zcash deprecation. But anything else from the ECC side that you guys want to report on that front? Oh, Alfredo?
Yes, I wanted to ask Chris, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you, Alfredo.
Okay, so I wanted to ask Chris about, I think you posted something in the Discord about that you were working in the moving the test framework from the SQLite grade into the Zcash client backend. I was wondering where you at in that regard.
Yeah, I'm actively working on it. I expect that I'll have a PR for it up probably around the end of next week. Beginning of the week is going to be mostly focused on finishing out Zip 320. So
Cool.
that's my
Thank
guess.
you.
Okay, anything else on the topic of Zcash deprecation?
Not specifically Zcash deprecation, but ECC has just finished our Zec Summit, and that was really productive. And we've got some interesting ideas that we're going to work on about things like instant payments. What else can you remember?
There's a whole variety of stuff that I mentioned this earlier, but you know, our roadmap is going to come out next week. So
Yeah, Chris, you had an idea about funding.
oh yeah, that was something aside, but yeah, starting to think about possibilities, since a lot of the future funding stream proposals have some mechanism for or some TBD distribution of grants. I posted to the forum an idea of one possibility, but it would be good for other folks to voice other possibilities.
Cool. Can we take it as read that Zcash deprecation is still a priority for you guys? Or are you guys going to be refocusing on these other ideas?
Zcash deprecation is still a blocker for virtually everything we want to do. So
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the topic of Zcash deprecation? Okay, let's move on and let's hear from Conrado on Frost.
Hi everyone. Yeah, on Frost we're wrapping up the refresh shares functionality. It's ready, but we working on some tests because we realized that there was one subtle thing that wasn't being tested, which is when we refresh the shares, we need to refresh the verifying shares, right? The public key that each participant has. And it's kind of tricky. I mean, it's not hard to test, but we were testing by just generating a Frost signature and verifying it. But when you verify a Frost signature, when you aggregate a Frost signature, you just verify the signature to see if it works, and if it works, you just return it. Only if it not works, then you try to verify each signature share, and that's what actually uses the verify share. So yeah, it's not a big deal. It's just that something that a subtle thing that we realized it wasn't being tested. So we're working on adding a test to that, but it should be simple. And the refresh shares should probably make into the 2.10 release. So our last release was 2.0 RC0. We were waiting for people to have feedback on the API changes. We didn't receive anything, so either people are happy or or people haven't tested. But we wait a bit more until release 2.0 final. And then not long after, we probably release 2.10 with the refresh shares functionality. And on the Frost server side, which is the thing we're working on to help people use Frost, we added user registration. It's implemented. It's just waiting for review. And we are working on some refactoring, which I think will be useful, which is basically moving some of the logic from the server back to the coordinator. Basically aggregating commitments and aggregating signature shares. This was being done by the server, but doesn't need to be done by the server. And if you do this on the coordinator, it makes a lot of things simpler, like adding encrypted authentication, which is the next step. And also, whenever we migrate from this centralized server format to a full peer-to-peer, we would also need to do this change, so we might as well do it now. It's already under implementation. It's almost done, to be frank. So yeah, I think I'm excited. I think we're almost at a point that we might have something that people can more easily use to use Frost, to produce Frost generated signatures for Zcash transactions. And we might also, yeah, we're discussing with Zingo about possibly doing some work on integrating with Zingo, but still very preliminary stuff. But yeah, our goal is to have this implemented somewhere, right, on a wallet, preferably. So yeah, we're excited in that direction, and maybe it will be useful for the whole lockbox thing that people seem to be in favor of. Yeah, that's it.
I realized I was not showing the correct the correct thing on the screen. Paco.
Yeah, if I may add on crossword, I haven't tested the 2.0 interface yet. According to what Corrado says, the changes wouldn't be breaking that much. It should be straightforward to adopt. But I have started to work on the orchard pieces of for the Frost Uni FFI SDK for using Frost on Go and Swift and Kotlin. And Blancas from Zingo Lab also offered to probably chip in with the Kotlin flavor of the Frost Uni FFI SDK as well. So everything's like this talk for now, but that's getting started. And I talked to Dara and Chris about how I could send the orchard changes to the orchard grade and how to feature gate them so that we don't modify the philosophy of the public API of the crate, because Frost key keys and Frost kind of like don't match in how ECC has I think correctly opinionated the orchard keys. So not to affect that and maybe enable ways to people to wrongly shoot themselves in the foot with some APIs that are meant to cross use only. We're going to feature gate those changes, and I'll be coordinated with, for Conrado and Brad and Chris and Dara to review those changes that are not really that big, but they are important that they are, in their own little corner.
Chris?
I'm sure we can get to those soon, despite everything else that we're working on. I actually had a more abstract question about Frost that came up at the Zec Summit. So I think the paper specifies a confidential and authenticated channel between the parties. The confidentiality there, am I correct in thinking, because this is the answer that I gave to someone at the summit, that the only issue there is that so if you reveal your signature share, then someone could potentially complete the signature and front run you in the case of blockchain applications, or let's see what else could happen that if the confidentiality is broken, because you're only signing hashes, right?
The Frost protocol itself doesn't have a confidentiality requirement, and authentication is only required if you need cheater detection, right? If someone generates a wrong invalid signature share, you want to know who was responsible, then you need authenticated channel. But you don't need confidentiality. In the context of Zcash, of course, you need it because if you're sending for privacy issues, you might not want to disclose information about the transaction you're signing. But the protocol itself doesn't have any confidentiality other than the key generation, right? And for the distributed key generation protocol, the trust dealer, of course, you need confidential channels because it transmits shares of the key. But the signing protocol doesn't have confidentiality requirements.
Yeah, I understand what I was misremembering now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the use in Zcash obviously does require confidentiality, but the
Yep.
general usage doesn't.
Cool. Any other questions or comments on Frost? Okay. I'm gonna skip back to something that I had added, but obviously I hadn't put up on the screen. So obviously we are going to have hopefully some clarity early next week about what's going to happen with NU6. It seems likely that a lockbox of some form will be required. So, and I think Chris, you've already done some sort of protocol specification about what that could look like. So that's something that we're gonna pivot to focusing on with a target of testnet activation on the 8th of August. Do I recall that correct? Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or updates or questions on that? Okay, and we'll keep this as an agenda item for the Arborist call going forward then.
Yeah, that's all.
You've cut off there. It looks like you.
I was just saying that's all correct.
Okay, cool. Okay, I don't believe. Well, do you want to give an update on trailing finality, or no change from last time?
I think so. The writing up the spec that we've done so far, the protocol description so far had been delayed, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to that soon. Otherwise, no.
I don't believe we have anybody here from the Sustainability Fund, nor from ZSA. So are there any announcements that anybody wants to share with the community? Going once. Going twice. Okay, any open discussion topics that anybody wants to raise? Arya.
Would this be a good time to ask a question? At Dara Emma, did you say instant payments, and could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so there were lots of different things discussed, but my definition that I gave of an instant payment is So a merchant and payer decide to make a transaction, and the payer confirms, and within 10 seconds, the merchant and the payer have common knowledge that the transaction has succeeded. So obviously, if it's only going to take 10 seconds, then that precludes a lot of on-chain solutions. But we did come up with some ideas for how to support this, and liberated payments was only one of them.
Yeah, we haven't specifically prioritized any of that work for the near term, because we have to first get through NU6 and we have to deprecate Zcash D and so forth. But it's definitely something that we'll be thinking about going forward, is, you know, how can we make everyone's experience lower friction and faster. And there's some low-hanging fruit that at the wallet level that we're going to be doing that will affect all of the wallet backend in the coming weeks. But you know, that again is that'll happen in the coming weeks after ZIP 320 and NU6. So
yeah. So instant payments should be distinguished between sort of receive to spend latency. So how long is it before you can spend funds after you receive them? And both are important, and we actually discussed both in the session. But yeah, we've got ideas for both.
Was there any discussion of Bolt?
actually, there have been a number of things that we've discussed this weekend that not Bolt specifically, but that would be potentially advantageous to have TZDs back in the protocol. And you know, that raises again the question of it would be really nice if the issuance for ZSAs were not tied to some bespoke features of the protocol, but were instead implemented as TZDs. Because one thing that came up is that we right now have sort of one idea for TZD issuance that
ZSA,
or excuse me, ZSA issuance that Kedit has been proposing. But I think that we should decouple the sort of the circuit level pieces of ZSA transfer from ZSA issuance, and it would be nice to have a design that where different issuance mechanisms could be implemented in terms of the TZD the TZD part of the protocol, so that we're not limited to just a single issuance mechanism, and that it requires a bloating of the protocol, or rather non-modular bloating of the protocol to support other forms of issuance going forward. With respect to Bolt, we haven't heard from the Bolt folks in ages. Is there something specific that prompted that question, Dodger?
No, I was just curious, because I think the Bolt guys were waiting for non-malleability to be implemented in the Zcash protocol.
Transaction ID non-malleability has been implemented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but actually, by the time that happened, though, they had moved on to other things.
Yeah.
But you know, their PRs are still open, and all of the protocol feature pieces are still under an experimental feature flag in Libra Zcash. We never integrated them fully into Zcash D, but at this point, of course, we wouldn't ever do that. You know, it would be a process of integrating them into Zebra D. But there may be several potential applications for them, and you know, for things that are not interacting with the transparent pool, but for transparent parts of the Zcash protocol, I would like if we were to revisit that that framework so that we have a standard way of doing those things.
I'm a little bit more skeptical. One thing I'd like to point out is that the code in Libra Zcash, at least, that implements TZEs, it is in imminent danger of bit rotting because of say NU7 support, NU6 support. I think there's something with SIP 320 that yeah, it's
well, I mean, there are things that haven't been implemented that, you know, where things are stubbed out in TZD support, but
and they're not being tested.
But they're relatively well separated enough from the rest of the protocol that I don't think I share those concerns. Because, you know, there's a separate part of the transaction, and the balance rules between the TZD parts of the transaction and the rest of the transaction are relatively straightforward. So I'm not as concerned about that. I mean, I think that it's worth revisiting, at least.
It is worth revisiting. Like I say, I'm more skeptical, but we do need to look at whether what the trade-offs are in complexity, overall protocol complexity, and features with using TZEs for things like this versus using sort of more feature-specific logic.
Yeah, it looks like back when we were talking about NU3 feature selection, op check sequence verify from Bitcoin was a prerequisite then, but I don't know if that was superseded by the TZE's solution.
I mean, there hasn't really been a lot of interest. It was something that we could add because we could just backport stuff from Bitcoin for Zcash, but I'm not sure there's sufficient interest in it on the Zcash network. And there's some opportunity cost in that we could be doing other things that maybe are more useful.
So there's not enough interest in what?
Check lock time verify.
Well, check sequence verify. I believe
Sorry,
check sequence verify
sorry.
was
Yeah,
a
sorry. Yeah, you're right. I got the wrong one. That the other one is already in.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just posted a link to the original zip draft, which is 5 years old now. It's kind of funny how we come back around to the same, talking about the same things, or this, you know, or talking about the same challenges or problems that that we were talking about years ago.
I've been working on Zcash now for about 4.5 years. TZD support was the first thing that I ever implemented.
And I apologize for kind of making you do that work, or our manager at that point making you do that work that didn't get used.
It might yet. It might yet.
Well, it might. Okay. This might be slightly controversial. I don't think there's anything wrong with a zip staying open for 5 years if it's well defined, well specified, but no one has a particular interest in it. It could still be, it's still available to be included in an upgrade if that interest comes back or it becomes useful for another purpose. As long as it's still valid, it doesn't need to be withdrawn. It's not doing any harm.
I don't think is that there wasn't any interest in implementing Vault. It's that it was blocked on things like transaction malleability for so long that
we fixed that.
I don't think it was.
No, it was at one point.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it actually was at one point, but we fixed that, right? We actually fixed that in NU5. So, you know, that was the necessary step. And so, you know, it's now easier to get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, the the zip is there, and
Yeah, maybe I'll look at it again.
yeah, cool. Any other?
Or someone else can look at it because I'm no longer a zip editor, and I shouldn't be a block on the protocol.
Any other comments or questions on that topic? Arya?
Not on that topic. I was just going to ask if there's anything else at the ZECC summit that came off as very interesting to any participants there.
Can you ask that again? I didn't fully understand.
What else are you most excited about that came out of the ZECC summit?
So personally, I am reinvigorated with respect to, I believe that there's an interesting variety of applications that can be implemented in terms of the existing primitives that exist in the Zcash protocol, combinations of memos, viewing keys, Frost, and there are a whole bunch of sort of interesting end user applications that we can build specifically into wallets. And I think we just need to build one of them. There are a couple of simple ones that I've had ideas about for a long time. I would love to get some traction to just build a couple of applications so that we have more like user application level reasons for people to use the protocol than just transfers of value. So that's the thing that I'm excited about coming out of the summit is getting more people using Zcash for purposes, for economic interaction purposes where it's not just payments.
Yeah, and there are a few things that are half-baked, so I'm not ready to describe because they're half-baked. That are very interesting and might lead to some important improvements. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, I think that the thing that I'm most excited about from the summit is just when we get together, there is a creative ferment because that's facilitated by having very high bandwidth connection. And lots of ideas come out of that, and yeah. Now we just need each of us to have a few clones to be able to implement it all.
We need to implement brain-to-brain communication.
Yeah, Zero Darts in the chat says, imagine all devs worked every day in the same office. Given our geographic disparity, the closest we can get to is having team retreats or events like ECC where everybody can.
It's amazing how well. It's amazing how well we do work as a distributed team. We really mesh.
Also, I've spent a lot of time working in offices, and you don't actually get the same effect from just working in an office. I think that the alternation between having focus time where you're undistracted, and then when you get together, there is a tremendous amount to do, and you can communicate at a much higher bandwidth. I think that the combination of the two is great. We just need to do the in-person things, and perhaps not as large of events, but just engineering folks things much more often. And that's the sort of thing where we've discussed that on a number of occasions, but that's something where I'd also like ZF engineers to be involved in, say an engineering retreat that is we're going to get work done, we're going to make things, we're going to write code for a week, as Zcash developers.
Cypherpunks write code.
Indeed. You talk more about that. The irony of having you guys all there at an ECC retreat to which we weren't really coordinated or invited is not lost, I think, on anybody at ZF. Anyway, we'll move on. Any other discussion topics that anybody wants to raise? Okay. Well, let's wrap it up there. The next Arborist call will be on the 25th of July in the earlier time slot of 3 p.m. UTC. So let's leave it there for now. Hope everybody has fun over there. And I'm sure we'll be communicating in the interim as and when we get more clarity on what's going to be happening in the next network upgrade. Ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.